Imagine you are in the wilderness, and you just discovered a new species of your favorite animal. No one knows you're there. It's just you. And all you have are your eyes, ears, hands, a pencil, and a notebook. So what do? Some may say to just look at the animal in awe and relay that information to somebody else. Others, like wolf biologists, may say to write down everything that's going on. To write down the environment, detail the physical characteristics the animal has, and how it's behaving in this environment. Let's say you do that. 20, 30 minutes later, you realize you have to go use the latrine. And so you go. And then once you complete your business, you return to realize that the animal has disappeared, gone without a trace. Now you have half a page of data, it's incomplete, and it's only half the story. This is a problem that wolf biologists may face during their research. That is why I propose that wolf biologists should use surveillance cameras to avoid this problem. To prove this, I conducted my own research on how surveillance cameras would benefit wolf biologists during their research. But before I did that, I looked at 3 articles based on how wolf biologists did their research in the past and how they do a little bit of it today. The first was in 1920 in Norway. During that time, it was impossible for wolf biologists to conduct their research in Norway, for they had no idea how. It had never been done. So, they began and started from scratch. They constructed a building that was used to gather data from afar. Bystanders or just random people would walk in and count the wolves they saw from a distance and give the data to the wolf biologists. They also gathered data through newspaper notes and from game wardens on their hunts if they would see any. This information proved unreliable. There were more questions than answers, for the numbers, for some reason, seemed unordinary. They dismissed this, and later, in the 2000s, molecular biologists assisted by constructing DNA profiles of individual wolves. This proved very beneficial, for whenever they found feces on the ground or blood, they knew whose it was associated with, and they could track them down to help them. This was a good start for wolf biologists in Norway. Next, during the 1960s, red wolves were becoming endangered in the American South. Thus, wolf biologists began a wolf restoration program. The program began with documenting red wolves' population decline and analyzing their behavior. With this data, wolf biologists published it so others could piggyback on it and continue with it at other times. While they were gathering this data, the Endangered Species Act was passed, which assisted greatly with increased funds and publicity. With these funds, the wolf biologists began a breeding program in the wild, which increased the red wolf's population tremendously. This took the red wolves off the endangered list. And finally, around this time, 2017 to 2018, wolf biologists were analyzing the health of red wolves. They gathered disease-related data on them and other canines like coyotes. They did this by evaluating regional areas in southeastern United States for disease occurrences in mammals and in parasites found in red wolves and in coyotes. Through this, they discovered that heartworms and hookworms were the most common endoparasites in red wolves and in coyotes. And after compiling this data, They concluded that young canines were less likely to have heartworms, but were more likely to have endoparasites later on in their life. This information proved very beneficial, for now that they have a record of how these endoparasites affect red wolves and coyotes, they're going to act upon it later on to prevent it. These studies accomplished their individual goals, although they could have done so more easier, more efficiently, and with more quality data if they used surveillance cameras. With the 24/7 monitoring that the surveillance cameras provide, the data would have been much more consistent, much more clear, and with less gaps and questions. Also, it would be as if each wolf biologist had photographic memory, and everybody could see it at any time. This data would have proved extremely valuable and changed the outcome of all of these articles for the better. That is why I conducted my own experiment to test these points. Now, I don't own a reserve that has wolves on it, or a license as a wolf biologist. But my aunt has two descendants of the wolf. She owns a beautiful Siberian husky named Coco, and a lovable Keeshond named Anya. She also owns 3 security cameras. With that in mind, I enacted my own wolf biologizing by using these cameras on her domesticated dogs. This way, I could test firsthand of how the cameras fared with them, on a lower scale than how it would be with wolves on a reserve. Now, initially, I had a very slow start. I encountered a problem with the cameras. They weren't turning on. After some time of investigation, I realized that the batteries had been dead for 6 months. These weren't ordinary batteries. They are known as CR123A batteries. They're similar in size to AAA, but much more expensive than them. My aunt and I surfed the web to find the price of these batteries. According to Walmart, a pack of 8 of them were $12. Seemed fair. So then when I asked my parents to purchase them the next day, they came back with a $60 receipt. I realized that that was the online price, not the in-store price. It was very dumb of me. A pack of 2 cost about $6. Very expensive batteries. Then I learned that the cameras themselves were $250 each. Luckily, my aunt got them at a discounted price. But that aside, I began my research. My research spanned across 3 days, from lunchtime to dinner time. During that time, Coco and Anya were by themselves. I kept it that way so I could research them in their natural environment without any human distractions. And this proved very well. The cameras would send me emails and notifications through an app that was installed on my phone that connected to them. These emails were sent to me whenever the cameras noticed motion. The motion was recorded only for 10 seconds, and I received a ton of them. I could tell whenever they were from the kitchen, and whenever they were in the living room, and how they would move to the theater room, all over the place. Although there were more anomalies than there were benefits. These anomalies consisted with how the cameras recorded. Like I said, they recorded through 10-second intervals. This was pretty bad, since I would receive emails and recordings of each individual motion detection. But they were like a CD that was damaged. It would stop and then go, stop and then go. Some of these recordings didn't make sense. It was as if they teleported from the living room all the way to the kitchen, and I know that these domesticated dogs do not have that power. So I questioned, why did they do this? And then I realized that they only recorded for 10 seconds, so they missed time. This was very bad, since I had to spend a few good hours putting these pieces together to see how they moved from place to place. Another anomaly is that they would only record from a certain distance. If they were too far, the camera would not record it as motion. That was also a reason why some things didn't make sense. These anomalies, including the expensive cost of the batteries and the security camera themselves, had led me to think that the surveillance cameras may not be as beneficial as I thought they would. Unless the wolf biologists have enough funds, they should consider not buying surveillance cameras. In accordance with the funds, the cameras themselves may not be up to the standards of monitoring wolf packs from a very, very large distance, and they may not record enough footage, since it's only in 10-second increments. Although, the disadvantages of not having surveillance cameras also weigh heavy on wolf biologists gathering data. Thus, I've concluded that wolf biologists should have enough funds to buy the best cameras they can, which may lead to it being the most expensive route. But if they do so, the advantages will outweigh the cost tenfold, for they will never have to worry about the disadvantages of going to the latrine and then missing an entire wolf pack go away. This is Ivan Rodriguez. Thank you.